Hello and welcome back to the ESPN Footy Podcast for another episode after a massive weekend of footy. I'm Jarryd Barca. Jake Michaels joins me, as does champion darters Christian Joly. Gents, there's a lot to unpack. Massive round of footy, as I said. But before we do, something you notice from the round of footy, Jake. We'll start with you.
Good to be sitting alongside you. Not that we don't.
Just get into it.
Not that we don't.
People to see, things to do.
Not that we don't enjoy our usual host Matt Walsh, who's travelling the world at the moment. But no, it's good to have you back here for a Tuesday episode after yesterday's game. But we'll get to that in a second.
We will.
So something I noticed, and I was sort of following this throughout the Bulldogs-Bombers game, was Artie Jones. So at halftime, he was 9 score involvements, 9 disposals. And I thought, I wonder what the record is for the most. And I understand, and I'm sure you'll clarify in a sec, Christian, that you can have a score involvement without having a disposal with a knock-on or something like that. Yep. So it's not like it has to. You can have that score involvement figure actually be higher than the disposals. But I actually thought, I was wondering what the highest even count for those has ever been. Unfortunately, he got to 10 and 10 early in the third quarter before getting subbed out with injury. So he did end up with the same amount, 10 and 10, but I sort of queried to ask you, what is the highest we've ever seen?
Yeah, so we've seen 2 games in history, exactly what you're sort of saying, with more score involvements than they have finished with disposals. So Brad Ottens is one of those, ruckman for Geelong. This 2011 had 13 disposals with 15 score involvements. So 13 disposals.
So that'll be hit-outs and things
had
like that.
Had 11 hit-outs to advantage, so a couple of those hit-outs might have led to, obviously, scoring chains. So 13 touches, 15 score involvements. And Andrew McDougall's an interesting one. West Coast centre-half forward from 2003. He had 13 disposals, only had the 1 hit-out to advantage, but had 14 score involvements, which included kicking 4 to himself. So they're guys that have had more score involvements than disposals. The most even to finish 1-1 is Stephen Milne, who finished with 16 disposals and 16 score involvements. 11 goals straight he was included in those. Was against, I think it was a final round against the Lions at Marvel Stadium one day. And another one was Fraser Gehrig in 2004, so a year earlier than Stephen Milne. As I said, also at St Kilda, 15 disposals and 15 score involvements as he kicked 9 to himself. So third on that list is actually Nick Riewoldt, who's also got 14 from 14. So the top 3 are all Saints players for some reason.
They're real just stuff score involvements. We'll just kick the bloody goals ourselves. That's their score involvement.
So he was on track, Artie Jones. He was on track to
10 out of 10's up there. Most recent one, Jeremy Cameron last year. 2024 it was. Round 24, 2024. He kicked 9 goals against West Coast, had 14 disposals and 14 score involvements. So he's the last one to do it.
Considering I think he might have kicked 3.
So was it all of his disposals were score involvements, or were there other things that Artie Jones did that?
I hadn't looked at his actual score. I think he had
kicked 3-1.
Yeah.
6 kicks, 4 handballs, but we haven't looked in to see whether there were any knock-ons or anything like that.
But to see that.
Yeah, probably not a guy that's kicking you 8, 9, 10 goal haul. So pretty impressive that he was able to do that. We'll keep an eye on that when he hopefully returns.
We will. Can a tackle count as a score involvement? If like a ball spills out?
Only if you win a free kick from it. So only possessions and disposals will award it. So that's another way you could have a score involvement with that disposal. You lay the tackle, you win holding the ball, your teammate picks it up and kicks the goal.
So it plays on from a free kick that
both players will get a score involvement with only one player getting the disposal.
Yeah, right. Keep us going, Christian. Something you noticed.
Yeah, sort of starting to take stock and just looking at, season trends and things like that, and came across the most improved and, biggest drop-off players of this year. So
like this.
The most improved, I think we'll talk about number 3 on the list in a short while when we talk about his team.
But this is based on
just rating points last year versus this year.
Yeah, okay.
So looking at minimum of 2 games, so not anyone that's just played the 1 game this year, so at least 2 games this year and at least 4 or 5 games last year to give enough of a sample size. Probably no surprise that Christian Petrarca is the most improved player in the competition. That first game that he had of the season was up there with one of the best 10 games of the last 2 or 3 years. So he's improved his rating points by about 13 per game. Nick Watson's second, who's improved by about 8 rating points per game, has been really important for Hawthorn. Third on the list, Harry Sharp from Melbourne. So we'll speak about Melbourne and their sort of new game style, if you like, but he's been a big beneficiary of that. Jack Steele, another Melbourne player who's probably the complete opposite to Sharp, who we'll get into as well. And Joel Amarty's probably been number 5, who's probably been one of the beneficiaries of having Charlie Curnow in the forward line and probably getting a lesser defender than he's used to. But the drop-offs were also interesting. So who's dropped away the most? Jeremy Cameron's had the biggest drop-off so far this year. I think no surprise.
We were saying this in the office earlier that he's dropped off a fair bit.
It's not just the goals, like the goal sort of productivity. It's just his shot. He doesn't look anywhere near as confident as he's been in.
He was on 3 goals 6 going into yesterday after being one of the more accurate players in recent years. Jack Graham second for West Coast, bit of a surprise, but 3 and 4 on this list is the two that I've got sort of asterisks next to. Third biggest drop-off this year, Rowan Marshall. Fourth biggest drop-off this year, Tom De Koning. So I think a lot of us would have guessed that of how they're going to work and how they're both going to come in. Are they,
We saw this a little bit a few years back with Gawn and Grundy when they were teammates, that it sort of impacted both of them, right?
Yeah, so that's an interesting watch for me. And Sam Darcy's 5th on the list, so he's probably another one that sort of, everyone would have had close to top 3 or 4 player at the start of the year. It just hasn't sort of come on yet. I'm not sort of writing Sam Darcy off at all, but he has had a very quiet start to the season.
He plays alongside Aaron Norton, who's probably in career best form at the moment as well. I wonder with the Saints guys there, though, if the rating points output from both of them accrued as a total would be more than what they were individually, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So if the Saints actually believe that they're getting more out of having the two of them, even if both of their individual games have dropped off slightly, then maybe they'd probably take that.
It's taken 2 spots out of your 23.
I do have an extra spot on the bench nowadays. Something that I notice from the round of footy, it's something I notice every round of footy, is players from kick-ins.
Hang on, that's not the segment.
Well, I'm hosting this show today, Jake. I'll do it the way that I want to do it. But players from kick-ins just running well beyond 15 metres and not being penalised for this. Watch it this week, and I noticed it so many times. I can't even give you one example because there's 18 examples every single round.
No, that does happen a lot.
They're taking the absolute...
You know what?
P155. Watch it. Someone will run to basically the 40-metre line and just not be penalised for running too far. It's one of those rules, it seems to me, that just don't get paid when you're deep in a forward line or a back line.
It gets officiated differently. I'll give you another one. It's the same rule, or whatever you want to call it, with players being able to take out an opposition on the goal line as the ball's sailing through for a goal. We see that all the time. Maybe not as much as this, but there seems to be there's never a free kick paid in that situation. We saw Jeremy.
The goal square just seems to be like a safe zone.
You can do anything you want. And I always find it funny that the commentary around it is, it's just accepted. You can do whatever you want. It's like, why? If that's 10 metres up the ground, it's a free kick 100 times out of 100. So I don't understand why, when the result is a goal, it's like scoring it should be when you enforce it the most because it's having the biggest impact on the game. I just do not understand why you can. We saw Jeremy Howe bounce back up after being taken out on Thursday night and was like, he couldn't believe that you can get a free kick.
The goal had hardly even been kicked and it just went straight off the ground, straight to the umpire. I was like, what the hell is that all about? It happens often. It's been happening for years.
Yeah.
But, since they made the rule where you don't need to touch the ball with your foot to play on out of the goal square, players are literally
they just go
waltzing out of there, get to 40 metres out, not let alone 15 metres, and boot the ball out of there. Anyway, one to watch moving forward for sure. I think we need to start with yesterday's Easter Monday Classic at the MCG. Jake, that was the game of the season so far. I think it's going to be really hard to beat that for the game of the season. Just another classic between these two old rivals. So many big moments to unpack from that game as well. You can go straight to the last quarter with Blitzarves, putting the Cats 2 goals up. Then he shanks one out in the full, and then Mabior Chol hits back, but then he shanks 2 shots as well. You got Shannon Neal's big mark and goal, Mitch Lewis's big mark and goal, and the game ends with a scrappy poster as well. There's so much to look at, but what was the biggest takeaway from that game from your perspective?
I think there were a few, but the one for me personally was that I think there's been so much talk at the start of this year, the first month, with how poor the fixturing has been with buys, with opening round, with all sorts of stuff that have just it's been a little disjointed. That game on Easter Monday, that was the best game of the year thus far, as you said.
Yep.
And it just felt like, for me at least, it really kick-started the year. And I know from now, this week we'll have gather round, we've got all 18 teams playing again, but it really just felt like we're underway now because we haven't had much. It has been disjointed. I haven't been able to enjoy the season as much for that reason. There's been so much talk of how bad the fixturing has been, but it was a great game to watch. It was a great spectacle. Two teams that, while maybe a notch below the top sides, I think everyone would be in agreement that they both feel like they're top 6 sides for sure. And still probably no doubt with players to come back in to help improve those two teams. But yeah, just very, very enjoyable game. Margin was close the whole way through. I don't know how much more you can ask for when you sit down to watch a footy game. And the other thing I said to you this morning was almost the perfect full-time score, right? 91 to 92, so you know it's close. You get a good amount of scoring. I think in the second quarter we saw a heap of scoring, and then it sort of tightened up a bit. So it was, for me, just about a perfect game of footy to watch. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And to be honest, love the fact that Jack Gunston was the hero at the end of the game.
After doing a hammy in the third quarter as well.
Yeah, probably the fourth player this year already that has done a hammy, gone off, come back on. So that's another weird trend to follow. But what else do you really need to say? It's been said. But the last, since the start of last year, he's been unbelievable. An unbelievable rise.
Weirdly,
career best form. You think he probably has been over the last year and a bit.
Well, kicked 70, didn't he, last year, including finals?
Yeah, and he's back second in the Coleman this year or early. So, fantastic game.
Cracker. Weirdly enough, my biggest takeaway was that I don't think these are two top four teams. I don't like making big statements, especially this early in the season.
Well, who are the four that are ahead of them?
20 weeks to go.
Who are the four teams?
Brisbane's better. I think the Western Bulldogs are better. And I like what I've seen more from Sydney and Fremantle and even Gold Coast if you bypass this previous weekend.
So you're kicking them down a sort of 6th, 7th area.
I'm just saying right now. Yeah. That was a game between two top of the middle six teams as opposed to two top four teams. But were there anything numbers-wise that you can take?
No, well, it was, really sort of hard game to sort of analyse, and spoke about how close it was. So Hawthorn probably dominated the basic stats, had more of the ball, plus 45 disposals, plus 17 contested possessions, plus 22 uncontested possessions. So had a lot more of the ball. -1 inside 50 for Hawthorn. So Geelong won the inside 50 count. But the Hawks were able to score from 50% of their entries compared to Geelong's 39% of entries. So Hawthorn's forwards really took the most of the chances. But the stat that sort of caught my eye, or you sort of talk about Geelong as well, they scored 4 goals from centre bounces. Hawks scored 1. 3 of those 4 goals from centre bounces came in that high scoring second quarter. So that was probably the one stat that stood out that kept Geelong in it, is how well they were able to score those. We almost call them bonus goals, the ones you get from kick-ins or centre bounces. You don't score from those all day long.
Yep.
But they did really well from that. But looking at the score sources, it was quite interesting. Geelong actually outscored Hawthorn from stoppages and from turnovers. So we speak about it always on this show that 3 main ways to score: stoppages and turnovers is about 95% of your scoring, and probably 5 or 10% comes from kick-ins. So the only score source Hawthorn won was from kick-in, where they scored 1 goal to nothing from Geelong.
So that cannot happen often, where you lose by both of those two main sources and win the game.
Yep, so only the 5th time in the past 5 seasons that a team has lost scores from turnovers and clearances, but being able to win the game basically just from the kick-ins. But that's how close it was. It was a bounce either way. Obviously, it took a ground kick off the ground. It hit the post to win the game. But even going through the numbers, you can see Hawthorn had a lot more of the ball. Geelong probably, as I said, Hawthorn's forward line was a bit more cleaner, but Geelong just getting their chances out of set of bounces and some of those scores from around the ground.
Yep.
Let's go back to that Gunston shot at the death that hit the post. And I wanted to actually include this as something I noticed, but you told me to include it in this segment here. So I'm going to go with it now. Did you notice, because it wasn't picked up in commentary and there weren't that many people talking about it afterwards, and probably because it didn't really have an impact on the ending, but he takes that shot, I think there might have been about 20 seconds to go or something like that.
Ish.
Hits the post. The camera angle kind of misses it hit the post. I, at first glance, thought it went through, but then the ball ricochets off the post and Max Holmes lands in his lap in the goal square, and he just turns around and boots it straight back out of the 50. The umpire had not signalled that it was a behind. Nobody knew what was happening. So he should not have been able to take that kick. It was not picked up at all. Now, of course, it doesn't make a difference. The result, Hawthorn won it by a point. It doesn't make a difference. But what if there was an extra 20 or 30 seconds left in the game? And what if
just the fact that he could bring it in so quickly.
Yeah, and what if Shannon Neal could get that ball out? And what if that released someone and they kick a goal and they win the game? That umpiring decision or non-decision, or just allowing him to play on, would be under immense scrutiny. So we go back to just officiating and talking about the players being able to run 30 metres and not take a bounce. These players getting taken out on the goal line. this sort of situation, that cannot happen. I don't understand how that can happen
Is
in
the
a game.
official written rule that you do have to wait for an umpire's signal?
Yes.
Yeah, you have to wait for the umpire to.
But maybe
signal
the umpire
behind.
did signal. I can't recall.
The umpire had not. There's
Yeah, it
no
wouldn't
way
be
the
that
umpire had signalled. The ball hit the post, ricocheted into Holmes's hands, and
off
then
he
he kicks
went.
it within a second. Like
How far did
normally
he
he
run
has
out
to
of
go
bounds,
across the line. The umpire signals, and that's at least 5, 6, 7 seconds waiting around for that.
Yeah.
So it didn't have an impact on the result of the game, but it could have, and that's where I have a take issue with it because, like I said. What happens if it did and there was a little bit more time left and they were able to win that game? We would be scrutinising that decision till the cows come home, but everyone will move on from it. The umpiring's got to get far better in late game situations.
It won't be spoken about either, but it was much better for Hawthorn that Jack Gunston's shot hit the post and didn't go through for a goal because the ball going back to the middle would actually have given Geelong a far better chance of winning the game, or at least tying it back up and actually getting points out of the game.
So
it's a weird one. It was better that he missed.
Yeah, so here's another little thing that we were talking about this morning, and this is a little bit niche and going on a bit of a tangent.
We love niche.
I'd like to get your analytical brain to sort of have a think about this too.
Because we don't have analytical brains.
So
we just talk shit the whole time.
Yeah. So when Geelong went up, so when Shannon Neal kicks that goal and the Cats go up by 6, and there's 94 seconds left in the game at that point.
Yeah.
So if you're Hawthorn, let's say it's a grand final, draw means nothing. You need to win the game. You know you need to score twice. You know you need either a goal and a behind or 2 goals. That's the only way you can win the game and not allow your opposition to score. So you know you're going to have to score twice. Are you better off, and this would never happen, are you better off trying to get the behind first and then getting the goal? Because that way you only need to get 1 centre clearance. You can get 1 centre clearance, kick the behind, and then win the ball back. And it's easier to win the ball back when you clog up a half.
Remind me which perspective this is.
Hang on, I'm saying you're the team behind.
Yeah.
You're Hawthorn in that situation. As opposed to kicking the goal, then you tie it, but then you come back to the middle and then it's a 50-50 situation
No, but I'm leaning to
again.
coming back. So seconds on the clock will matter for this, but I'm leaning to going back to the centre because I think you're more chance of winning a centre bounce clearance than you are a forward half intercept. So you got to remember when you kick it behind, the other team has possession of the ball.
Yeah.
So yes, it's in your forward half, but they have the ball and you have to win it back. I think percentage-wise, you're more likely to win a centre bounce clearance when it's a 50-50 throw up in the centre.
That should be 50-50, right? Like a pretty close to 50, depending on your personnel. It's up, but I would say that feels like a true 50-50.
Yeah.
You got 4 on 4.
But I reckon only about 25 or 30% of defensive half chains are cut back off in your front half. So it's,
I reckon
to be fair, it
Yeah.
helps your point that Max Holmes actually won the
He
centre
won the clearance, so they
It
didn't-
was only James Sicily's intercept that led to the winning.
And that goes back to your point about, well, it depends how much time is left.
Yeah.
Because if there's 15 seconds left, then the Sicily intercept would have meant nothing because they wouldn't have been able to get the ball back down the other end. But just a thought that I had, because you got to get 2 centre clearances in a row in the last 90 seconds. Not that Mitch Lewis takes that mark 15. He's not going to be like, I'm going to kick it behind and then we'll try and get there. It's never going to happen. But it's like, if he were to miss it, if he hit the post, it's not the worst situation in the world. Because now but no one ever thinks about it the other way around.
I'm still leaning going back to a neutral ball than giving them possession.
You would never have a player that intentionally.
The thing is, and we'll move on. But
we need to.
If you give them, if you go back to the neutral part, and sure, it is 50-50 in the middle of the ground. If you don't win that clearance, if they do as the Cats did, 1 kick and you're now 120 metres from goal.
Yeah.
So again, like time will obviously play a factor in that decision. But yeah, just a thought that I had watching the last couple of minutes of that game and thinking, I wonder what the numbers would say would be what do you have the best chance?
I'm still waiting for someone to handball through a winning behind.
So why didn't they? No, hang on a second. Why
when it
didn't
gets
they?
that close to goal, I'm like, just put it through any way you can. There was one spoil that went the other way. The Hawthorn player spoiled it away from goals. Like anything will get you.
So why are you kicking it off the deck the way? Why don't you grab it and handball it over the top through the points? Yeah,
feels like that would be easy.
I think instinctively it's hard to think to do that as a player when you're in that situation. But anyway, we do need to move on. So Jake Michaels, April 7, 2026 points are worth more than goals. You heard it here first. So the Hawks are 3-1, but so are the D's. who stunned a premiership contender on the weekend as well. I think you can look at Gold Coast in this situation and say, well, they weren't at their best, and that's fair and that's fine. But you still have to be really impressed by what Melbourne have been doing as well, not only this weekend, but what they've been doing under Stephen King since he took the reins at the D's. So they've still got experienced players. They're new recruits like Jack Steele and Brodie Myercheck fitting in seamlessly. Jake Melksham hasn't really fallen away. He came back and kicked a few on the weekend as well. Did he kick 3 or 4 in the end? They're still led well by Max Gawn and Cozzy Pickett.
Cozzy Pickett's been the player that's taken his game to an incredible level.
Absolutely. One of the best players in the game, like without a doubt. And then young kids that are coming in and filling some gaps as well. There's just a new voice there, fresh ideas. They're playing fast, energetic. They look really confident. And if you're a D's fan right now, you'd be pretty happy with what you're seeing.
And the thing is, like, it's personnel's interesting, right? Like, and I'm not going to throw out another weird theory of being like you want to get rid of your 3 best players, but to not have Christian Petrarca, Clayton Oliver, and then lose Jack Viney for half the year, maybe more, who knows? Everyone was sort of in agreement. Yeah, Melbourne probably going to be a bottom 4 side. So what has Stephen King been able to do in the throughout the pre-season and then into the start of this year that has made this Melbourne side look far more dynamic than they did last year?
Yeah, so it's all been transition, the buzzword that we've probably been speaking about for the last 18 months or so. So transition, outside game, ball movement, that's been the number one change. I assume it's been the number one focus for them in the off-season. And it's still early days. So they've scored the second most points from D50 Melbourne of any team this year. So being able to score from back 50 chain has been great. 15th for points against. They're still conceding the 4th most. So Melbourne games are basically the most open of any team this year. They're happy to go end to end. But in doing that and keeping the game open for themselves, it probably hurts them going a little bit the other way.
So the opposition against Melbourne are also able to transition the ball pretty easily.
Yeah,
Do you think that makes it Melbourne is a good team for a neutral to watch?
I think,
in terms of what the average person likes.
They're one of the most watchable teams right now.
The ball seems to be moving the most. So to go back to relative speed of ball movement, which hasn't been around for too long, it's been around since about 2019, I think, is our first year of it. It's the fastest ball movement season we've seen so far. So only 4 rounds in. We talk about 100 being the average, and you think about 2 weeks ago when they beat Carlton, everyone thinks about the last quarter and the comeback in the last quarter.
Yep.
Their first quarter from a set position, they were going at a speed rating of 300, which is just ridiculously
fast.
So
is that 3 times what the average is, like, essentially?
It's not quite that exact science, but that's an easy way to sort of sell it. They're going almost 3 times as fast per possession.
Yeah.
So, if they were taking a mark from a Carlton kick, they were just running off straight away or kicking it or handballing it almost.
So is that
away.
more, forgive me, because we might need a refresher on speed of ball movement here, but is that more you're kicking the ball further or you're playing on quicker?
Yep, everything's taken into account. So the whole relative speed of ball movement takes into account 3 things that it's wrapping up to see how fast you go. And that's the time you hold the ball of. So taking a mark from a teammate, you're expected to get rid of that ball quicker than if you take a mark from an intercept kick. So little things like that, looking at the competition average, go, okay, if you get a handball receive versus if you get a loose ball get, what's the average time of holding that in your hand? Second thing it takes into account is just the distance the ball's travelling through the air. So you get the ball, run 50 metres backwards and kick it 50 metres backwards through the air, the ball's moving fast. So that still speed of ball movement will still come up as sort of high speed because the ball's going through the air. But the third thing that we also bring into it is the aggressiveness, the distance towards goal. So how how fast you're actually going straight to goal. So Melbourne ranked top 4 in all 4 facets. So time that they hold onto the ball, the distance that the ball's flying through the air, but also the aggressiveness towards goal. So yeah, fastest team we've ever seen. Just little things like the second highest percentage of kick forwards of anyone this year, 16th last season. So that's just when you get the ball, where are you looking to kick to next? Are you going sideways, backwards, or forwards? They're going forwards the second most. But as I said, so 4th best going from D50 to inside 50, 3rd worst at defending that. 2nd best from going D50 to score, but 4th worst at defending that. So still a little bit of give and take for Melbourne, but in terms of watchability, you're right. The sort of their games or even them themselves are probably the most watchable and most open games going around.
So is this viable? Is this a sustainable switch up of game plan over the course of a season, or do you think it's something that might bring them back down to earth eventually?
Well, it probably comes down to experience of how long, as I said, if you're playing a little bit of kamikaze football, okay, when we get it, we'll go fast. It might hurt us the other way. They're probably going to have experience a little bit of pain just because of the young midfield. We just spoke about how much experience they've lost in the midfield and things like that. So it might have a few troughs this year. But in terms of sustainable game plan, that's where the game's going. We've spoken about Carlton and past versions of Melbourne just putting too much of the eggs in one basket of contested footy and clearance. The game's moving away from that, and it's moving towards this sort of style that Melbourne's playing. So another thing I looked at is just, the players rating points from ball use, and the players that are actually getting more value from them using the ball this year. Bailey Fritsch has also almost been number one improver in the competition. He's getting 8.8 player rating points from ball use this year compared to 4.1 last year. So that's him getting the ball a little bit more, but also what he's doing with it. You got Cade Chandler, who's averaging 5.7 this year after 3.3 last year, so that's a small forward. Harry Sharp, who I spoke about, 5.6 player rating points from his ball use per game this year. 1 last year, was in and out of the side, was barely used.
So essentially Melbourne's biggest improver.
Yeah, especially with his ball use.
Yeah.
Van Rooyen, 6 goals in opening round would have helped, but he's almost getting 1.9 more rating points from his ball use. Ed Langdon, Tom Sparrow's up there, who's a bit of an inside player. Giath, who's been injured recently, but Tholstrup, 2.6 points per from ball use this year compared to 1.1 last year, and Lindsay, 2.6, 1.5. So there's a lot of young names there and a lot of young sort of outside runners. So spoke about Jack Steele being the 4th most improved player in the competition this year. He's the starter.
Yep.
He's the one that's getting it out to him, the number 1 tackler in the competition. But there's just so many names, as I said, Lindsay, Tholstrup, Giath, who's been injured, Sharp, Chandler, these guys that are just complementing him on the outside.
Absolutely.
A lot of those guys were in and out of the side under Simon Goodwin.
So how many players in St Kilda's current midfield do you think Jack Steele is right now better than?
Oh, gee, I would have liked you to have asked me that question a couple of hours ago to have
Sorry
to think
to throw you
about
on the
it.
spot.
Look, it's tough to say, but he's certainly... The fact that all they got back from him was a third-round draft pick, 2027 third-rounder, I mean, that's basically nothing.
Packet of chips, as I say.
Jack Steele is not old. Jack Steele is a proven performer. And he's been great. And he's stepped into that midfield and he's filling that role, right? He is exactly first hands on the ball, clearances, contested possessions, tackling. That's what he does. It's what he's always done. And he's allowing the guys on the outside to thrive. I think it's been a great pickup. So far, I would argue it's been the pickup of the season, of the off-season, in terms of what was given up to get him and the impact he's had. I don't think that's really debatable at all. So... Yeah, a great pickup from him. Now, I was also thinking about Jack Steele. Here's one I want to throw out to the audience, actually. Can anyone think of a player, well, you two can answer this too, but I don't think you got any names for me. Can anyone think of a player, other than Jack Steele, who has captained a club, and not just for a game, like been a club captain from the start of the year? I mean, he's captained for 5 seasons.
Captained a season at a club.
Yeah, not just you stepped in or a vice captain that you did captain once. You were a club captain at the start of the year. But also played for 3 clubs. I cannot think of another player that ticks those 2 boxes. So please let us know if you can think of anyone.
Did you put the query to Christian? Can you track that?
Well, yeah, no, we don't have captain, so it was sort of one that I said the same to Jake. I can find you 3 club players, but then I'd have to go manually through and work out who was the captain. And
I've had a look at all the current 3 club
some
players.
Some that crossed my mind were, sort of through to you was, had Jack Gunston maybe captained a game here and there, but you were looking for season named captain at the start of the season, which wouldn't have been Jack Gunston.
I think Tom Mitchell was the captain a game, but we're not. Yeah. He was never the club captain. So, let us know if there's any name that sort of springs to mind. But he's in a very unique position there, and it sort of proves like he was St Kilda's lead star midfielder for a number of years.
He was a great player there as well.
Yeah, and I think there's no reason why he can't be a really strong player for the D's. And it does prove, despite what people tell you, it does prove that there is still room in the game for the Jack Steele type mould of player. You don't need to have every player being a speedster on the outside. Like, you do need someone. The issue is you can't carry 5 or 6 players that...
Yep. Are all the same.
But
he does complement what they already have, which Christian made that point before.
So looking ahead with the D's, so good news and bad news. The good news is they play, in the next 5 weeks, they play Essendon, Richmond and West Coast. So 3 very likely wins there. Bad news, they play Brisbane and Sydney as the other 2. So
in the next 5.
So
pick up 3 wins.
So 3 more wins. All of a sudden, I think if they go 3-2 in that stretch, which they probably do, all of a sudden, I think you get to this round 9, round 10, and that's when you might start talking about, is this side going to remain a finalist? And I think now that we have the wild card, 10 spots, I think it's now probably looking more likely than not that they
We'll be in the mix.
absolutely in the mix, but I think they'll probably get one of those spots. I think I had Carlton as one of those 9 or 10 spots at the start of the year. It certainly isn't happening. So maybe it's Melbourne that'll take that spot.
It might be. So we'll continue to watch the D's because what they're doing is very exciting for footy in general, because it's always good when a team that isn't expected to rise.
I thought you meant
in terms of the storyline.
I thought you were going to say it's always good in footy if Melbourne's doing well.
No, not Melbourne. Not Melbourne. I don't mind. I don't care. But no, it is good to see what they are doing. So they're a major story out of that round, but out of the season so far as well. But Christian, what else was there that we should be aware of numbers-wise out of round 5 that stood out from that round of footy?
Round four,
yeah. And it was a long round, yeah.
What? Oh, no, because of opening round, sorry.
So we got...
AFL tables just did me dirty.
Yeah, don't go by them. They can't get their rounds right now.
Yeah, what else have we learned other than what we've spoken
so we've got a few things game by game. As I said, this game feels like it was almost round 0, but it was Thursday night, Brisbane-Collingwood. So across the game, Lions plus 39 contested possessions, their 10th best game ever, and Collingwood's 5th worst on record. So it was just beaten up around the ball. Two of their key midfielders, Nick Dacos and Scott Pendlebury, obviously out for the game. Didn't help, but in the forward half of the ground for Collingwood, they were negative 32 ground ball gets in their forward half. So that's their forwards getting beaten at ground level by Brisbane's defender. And that's their 3rd worst game in the last 20 years. So, sort of that was the big part of why the Lions were able to sort of dismantle Collingwood, was the ability just to win contests all around the ground, really. Sort of the Friday games, Carlton, North Melbourne. Carlton now won the first half but lost the second half in 4 consecutive games. There's only one other team to do that since 1999 across the first 4 rounds of the season, and that was Carlton in 2025. So 2 years in a row, they've started the exact same way.
You have to applaud the consistency.
We do laugh, but that proves how ridiculous it has got.
Yeah, it's a mirror image of where we were. Shouldn't say we, Matt would have picked me up on that, but where Carlton was at this stage last year, nothing's changed according to that stat. So same one. Adelaide, another close game. That was the Friday night game. So their combined margin of 30 points across their first 4 games is the lowest first 4 games of the season since 2019, and the 4th lowest this century. So this century meaning from 2000 onwards. So playing a lot of close games. I know their record's probably on the wrong side of the ledger at the moment, but probably something that you look for Adelaide, saying they haven't been too far off even when they have lost.
Yeah.
Richmond Port on the Saturday, Tigers plus 16 clearances in the opening half, their best opening half ever. So that's for Richmond, their best ever, and the 5th best of anyone to be plus 16 at half time. So we don't think of Richmond as, we sort of think that their midfield's probably the one thing that hasn't got the young kids bristling through there. They've got Taranto, Presti. We probably think that midfield's got a bit stale, but geez, it worked against Port Adelaide. I know they had Ollie Wines sitting on the bench for a whole quarter and they got Rosie out.
Is it better for them to stick with that because it's working from a pure midfield sense? Or is it better to get games into the kids and get them having more CBAs?
Yeah, that's what I think. The way that, and the kids that they picked up as well, like Lawler, Grill, these guys, they're not genuine centre bounce midfields. Like Lawler's your mid forward that can sort of pinch it in there. Grill's a running half back. A few of those guys probably getting benefiting from not having to be able to play midfield, but not have to be there at the centre bounces.
Yeah.
Aliir thought he was great across the game. 18 intercepts, equal most by a Port Adelaide player. So had 8 intercept marks and at least 18 intercept possessions. So just the second player ever.
He's had some very big stat games.
Yeah. I think he's one of the ones that has the 10 intercept marks record. One of the 12 or 13 players that's done it. So
will that ever be broken?
It will. Everything will get broken at some point.
Seems so hard. I mean, Darcy Moore was on, I think, 9 3/4, and then he just,
I think Darcy Moore, broke it, but then a mark got taken off him.
Yeah, but that was taken off during the game. Yeah, but that was during the game still. So he could have had 11, but there was one that he took at half-time that was after the siren. Sydney West Coast, I mean, pretty obvious one, but the Swans, 71% score per inside 50. Their best in any game since 2008, and their 5th best on record. So West Coast defence just couldn't stop scores. But probably the worrying sign for West Coast was pressure factor of 151 is their 3rd lowest ever in a game. So we're pumping up West Coast for what they did in the last 2 weeks and sort of playing really, really well. We always say pressure's one of those things. I mean, once teams start to take uncontested marks against you, that's it's impossible to put pressure on. That's got to take your pressure factor down. But it just seems like one of those ones that if you are going to be a good side, that shouldn't fluctuate too much.
Yeah. Is there a case of game was over by quarter time, basically, and just felt like the players almost gave up.
A little bit, but their fourth quarter pressure of 130 is their second lowest ever in a quarter. So it didn't sort of, when you regroup at three-quarter time,
It just felt like
we're
100 points now. We're not playing for anything. We've had a couple of good weeks. There's no media scrutiny.
Maybe,
Let's just get to gather around.
Set it off, yeah, maybe.
There's two aspects to that, right? So you have to naturally expect the ebbs and flows in West Coast's season this year, as much as they have won a couple of games already. They're not going to win many, but also they were one of the best pressure teams, right, in the first few rounds of the season.
Yeah.
What they were doing, contest-wise. So Sydney obviously knew that. And Sydney don't need to go too hard scouting what West Coast are doing because they themselves are a contender, but obviously as a professional team you go to work, you know what West Coast do well, you take that off them and you're just better than them, you're going to get a 100-point margin.
Just another one from that game, Jai Sarong, just the fourth Sydney player to have at least 25 disposals, 8 intercepts and 13 score involvements in a game, so he's a big watch. Very surprised. Not surprised, but he didn't come up on the biggest improvers because he didn't play enough games for Hawthorn last year.
Right.
When we're talking about biggest pickups, you just talked about Jack Steele. I think this guy's name has to be in top 3 or 4 pickups, probably paid nothing for him, and he's been a really important cog to their ball movement this year. Ben King, this one's surprising me. He's on 19 goals, which is actually the most of anyone after round 4 since Lance Franklin in 2008.
Something you noticed.
Doesn't seem like a lot.
Is that after round 4 because he's had the bye? Still played 4 games, I guess.
So it still works out to be even. So 19 goals doesn't seem like much, but when Franklin had more, he ended up with 100 goals that year. So
it's basically 5 a game.
Is he actually on 100 watch or not?
Well, that's what I was going to say. We had Jeremy Cameron on 100 watch at about
with
round 16 or 17 last year. I think we need to put Ben King on 100 watch quite soon.
Cameron started last year very slowly as well, if I recall. Like he I think his first 3 or 4 games, he didn't have a tally anywhere near 19 goals.
Yeah.
I can't recall off the top of my head, but yeah.
Second one. Just another quick one. Archie Roberts, who's probably been one of Essendon's shining lights this year. Youngest ever player to have at least 35 disposals, 10+ marks and 700+ metres gained in a game.
Yeah, right.
One of the positives for Essendon.
Yeah, Cameron, eight goals in his first 4 games last year. He went 4-1-1... Sorry, 7. 4-1-1-1. So 7 goals so he was miles off, and he still got in the 100 watch. So I think we are going to be talking about Ben King 100 goal,
most of the season.
quite a bit throughout the year.
Yeah, we'll do a tracker.
Does he do it? Does he do it?
No.
If we include finals and he stays fit, do you think he can get 100?
Including finals potentially, but if they finish top 4, they win a qualifying final, you actually lose a game. So you almost want him to lose a game.
You do, but also you win
chance.
games because you gain games because you're playing finals.
Yeah, that's true.
I still don't rule
I want to
out.
see it, but I'm just...
We all think Gold Coast are good enough to play on grand final day, despite the performance on the weekend. Just I threw it out there last year. Jeremy Cameron could kick his 100th goal on grand final day. Didn't quite get there. I think he finished the year on 88. Ben King, just saying. Planting the seed. 100 goal on grand final day would be pretty cool. Cool moment.
Let's move on. I know you guys have spoken about this on the pod in previous seasons, but I reckon, Jake, we should bring this up again. What exactly is a safe lead? Because we've spoken about the Blues to death and all their blown leads, but West Coast have done it a couple of times this year. Freo gave up a 6-goal lead against Adelaide, albeit they still won that game. Brisbane did it against the Bulldogs in opening round. And there's more than that.
Yeah,
that have happened this season. So that's one of the other storylines I think that we're sort of noticing unfold in 2026. What exactly is a safe lead right now, Christian? Can you say?
Well, I've probably gone the other way and sort of looked at which lead has become less safe or more risk when you're in front by this much. But 20 points in the second half, so leading by 20 points at any stage during the second half, and going on to win or lose the game. So this year we've had 32 games where someone's been leading in the second half. 6 of those games are ended with the person that was behind by at least 20 points in the second half winning the game, or the team winning that game. So 6 out of 32 doesn't seem like much, but it's just under 19%. So 19% of the time that you're 20 points down at in the second half, you can come back and win.
About 1 in 5 times.
Yep. 2025, it happens 7% of the time. 2024, 10% of the time. 2022 is the highest we've seen before this year at 10.5% of the time.
So we're right up there.
Go back to 2018.
More than double.
2018, it happened. It was 186 times a team had a 20-point lead in the second half, and only 10 times did we see a team come back from that. It's already happened 6 times in the first 4 rounds. So We always sort of looked at 30-point margin's a pretty good margin to have. But yeah, just the query I sort of spotted is, leading by 20 points in the second half is no longer safe. And then it could probably extrapolate that to the last quarter, which you saw with Carlton North. We're up by 20 in the last quarter, and I think a couple of other teams this year.
So it was 6 of 32, but if you take Carlton out, it's 3 of 29.
Well, three of those are Carlton. So Carlton's done it against
But the other
Sydney,
side to this
Melbourne,
is,
and Melbourne.
so 6 of 32, but included in this isn't, so the example I gave, Fremantle were up by 34 points.
So that could easily be another
Adelaide
one.
hit the front in the last quarter.
Yeah.
But so Freo don't count in this stat.
Yeah.
So the teams are actually pegging back these margins a lot more frequently than we have ever seen before.
Yeah, correct, yeah.
Even if they don't win.
And I think a lot of it comes back to the game style, and we've sort of discussed this over the last couple of weeks, just how the game has changed and evolved over the last 12 months and what we're seeing now. And I think that does allow scoring.
Yeah. I think a massive underrated part of it is the 6-6-6 of when teams were 24, 25 points up or whatever and going into the last quarter, you could play 7 in defence, you could play 8 in defence at a centre bounce and sort of stick
That's
to
a good
that.
point.
Now you can't do that, so it's allowing teams to sort of get run-ons.
I wonder how much of it is psychological as well. When you are in front by so much, you're not trying to allow the other team to reduce the deficit, but naturally you might not take off those dangerous
That's what I think.
options. But the teams against you, when they're facing these deficits, they have to take it on.
If you're leading by 20 points in the second half, you're more likely to shut your game up or change your game around than someone that's behind by 20 points. So 100% agree.
I used to, when I was younger, I used to go to the footy with a friend of mine, and he used to say kind of that. He used to have this theory. He was a Carlton supporter as well, and he would say, I'm sure he'd be saying the same thing now, but he would say, I don't like being in front by 15 points because I feel like we're hanging on. Whereas if we're down by 15, I feel like we're a chance to come over the top. And it does sort of feel like that a little bit, but I mean, you've got to take the lead where you can.
Where would Carlton be on a made-up ladder where the game might end at three-quarter time or half-time instead of 4 quarters?
Well, lucky for you, I think we've run that query, have we not?
We have. So I think you originally asked for three-quarter time. So if all the games ended at three-quarter time, where would Carlton be on the ladder? This is going from the start of last year. They'd be 9th on the ladder. So what's that, wild card this year?
From the start of last year,
From the start of last year. So that's ending the game at three-quarter time. But let's end the game at half-time instead. Carlton would be 3rd on the ladder, 19 wins and 8 losses, with only Adelaide and Geelong, who also are on 19 wins and 8 losses. So
just percentage.
Only percentage separating the top 3, which would be Adelaide, Geelong and Carlton.
So
that is extraordinary.
So Carlton are morally 3rd on the ladder.
I said it last week. You cannot explain what we're seeing here because we haven't seen it happen before. And
it's mental.
It is mental. And if I hear someone say, it's fitness again, I'm going to scream. It cannot be fitness.
Yeah.
It has to
I
be
agree.
mental. And what happens is, the problem with it being mental is that the more it happens, the harder it is to shake it. And I think it's just becoming, we're going to see it again this week. And not that I believe Carlton's going to be leading the Crows by 20 points in the second half, but if they are, you will see it again with the players. And the fans know it too. The camera's panning around to the fans at Marvel and they're all biting fingernails. Were you there at Marvel?
I was there and I was biting fingernails.
Anyway, enough Carlton
If you don't laugh, you'll cry. They could so easily be 3-1, but could so easily be 0-4.
Yeah, and it is interesting how
very early in the
different
season,
the
so
commentary
who knows?
around it, around Voss and around the team itself, like
It
how different that would
completely
be
changes, yeah.
had they been able to hold on in those games or just win them in any other way.
Yep.
But I also do think, as diabolical as it has been, and this is why I was sort of had my Carlton hat on, hoping that they could find a way to win, because if they can just break it one time, then it feels like, we've proven to ourselves we can do it. It. As much as you can say, well, now you're 1-7 in those kind of games, I don't think they look at it that way. We've proven we can win that kind of game.
Yep.
And until that happens, it's just going to be, no one's going to feel comfortable or safe, and no lead is comfortable or safe. But it will happen eventually. Don't think it will be this week against Adelaide, but there will be a game where they do hold on and they do win, and it will feel like that monkey is off the back, so to speak.
All right, it's now time for Justified Hype or Hyperbole, gents. I'm going to throw you some statements and you know what to do. Jake, we'll start with you. The Pies need to rethink their players over picks mantra.
Well, I think that's justified because we've probably been talking about this for a couple of years. Obviously, Collingwood's gone heavy down the trade, free agency sort of path, and I wouldn't say neglected the draft, but probably hasn't relied on a heap of top-end draft talent. I think that's pretty evident when you look through the list. There are a couple of guys, you're a Collingwood man, there are a couple of guys on the list, younger 20, 21-year-old guys that we haven't really seen that much at the top level that you're pretty high on. But in terms of those that we have seen, I mean, gee, it is thin. The under 26s, the only under 26s that we've actually seen play a decent sample size of footy that are ticks, I think it's Dacos and McCreery, and that's kind of it. I don't think there's many.
From what we've seen and what has been exposed, it really is those
we
two.
We can't give anyone else a tick. So who are the long-term players? I mean, there's an argument to be made. Nick Dacos won't be there when Tasmania comes in. Who knows what happens there? And McCreery, I think, has been a big win for the Pies. But gee, it is pretty thin. I think. Especially when you look down the list of some of the names that have been taken later in drafts over the last few years.
Would it not be foolish for them, though, playing devil's advocate here, for them to go down the traditional rebuild path whilst having a generational player in Nick Dacos at their disposal? While you have him, I think you need to do everything you can to contend, to not waste
the benefit of Nick Dacos and why he is so unique compared to all the other superstars that have come before him is he hit superstar status when he was 21. Like, no one else really does that. Normally, by the time they are at that level, they're 25, 26, 27, and then it's like you feel like you're now on the clock because it's like we've got 4 more years of their prime left. You got a decade, assuming he is to stay there, you got a decade of him being arguably the best player or at worst second best player in the league. I think you can afford not necessarily a full-blown rebuild, but you can afford to take a couple of years to find pieces that are going to complement him for the next 8 years. Because you can look at the Collingwood list right now, and we know, we can say this with almost 100% certainty, that in 24 months' time, Scott Pendlebury, Jeremy Howe, Steele Sidebottom, Jamie Elliott, Jack Crisp, Tim Membry, Dan McStay, Darcy Cameron maybe, I mean, they're probably all not there. So that's arguably, some of the probably 5 of the 12 most important players still in there, some in those names. So I think they definitely could have taken the approach of we have time on our side with Dacos and we can find other players to join him and build with him. And I think that's probably where they haven't. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. And as we've said, there may be players that we just haven't seen at the top level yet because they haven't been given the opportunity. And Collingwood, to be in all fairness, like Collingwood preliminary finalists last year, grand finalists a couple of years before that, or premiers a couple of years before that. So I don't. It's not as if they've been nowhere. They've been at the top. They haven't needed to. So fair enough to be going all that to try and win. But I think it's getting to the point now where it does feel like the cliff is going to come, and it's going to be interesting to see how they do approach that rebuild when inevitably all those names that I rattled off before just are going to retire.
And 3 probably compromised drafts with Tassie coming in as well. It's going to be very, very hard to do. So,
yeah, which is why I don't think they're going to do it. So they're an intriguing watch, not only for the rest of this season, but a few years moving forward. When Tassie do come in, let's see if they do decide to blood the youth. Christian, this one's for you. The Crows won't play finals footy.
Oh, you including wildcard finals footy?
You've got to include it.
No.
No.
Wildcard just takes you an extra week to
Finals
realise the
footy
finals
is a wildcard final.
7th and 8th
It's still a top 8 system. The wildcard just is another week to figure out 7th and 8th.
Well, I think they'll have to play in that weekend to figure out whether they get to 7th and 8th the way they're travelling.
So you think they're a wildcard team?
Yeah, I think there's every chance it's justified what you just said there, that they do miss finals if they drop something on wildcard round. And yeah, as I said, it's usually 5 or 6 weeks that we start to look at, especially something like the premiership standards. You usually want to wait till 5 or 6 weeks in, but just a quick look at it. The Green, defensively good. We know defence wins premierships. It's Green there, but they're 17th for turning a chain into a score. 18th for going D50D inside 50, sort of 15th for contested possession differential, 15th clearance differential. So just some of the numbers of that offense, the ability to sort of turn that great defence that they have into offence and then get a score of it is just not there. Something they struggled with last year. Finished on top of the ladder with a few numbers that did worry me last year in terms of not being able to sort of score from back half like the other good teams are starting to do. So, yeah, especially if they don't fix their transition play and their offence, then they're every chance to maybe miss finals this year.
Jake, not to beat a dead horse here, but the AFL should introduce a rolling fixture.
I think that's. 100% justified. Just for clarity, the AFL currently has a rolling fixture of sorts. So the last 9 rounds, if you go to the fixture and look at the last 9, I think it's the last 9 rounds, you will see the matchups of who's playing who, but we don't know when the game is going to take place. I don't know why we don't have that for a larger portion of the season. So I think the first 16 rounds are set in stone. Don't know why we can't do it in sort of 3 blocks. So we start with our first 8 weeks or whatever, add the next 8 weeks, like maybe halfway through that period, and then do what we do with the final 8 or 9 weeks where we add that 4 or 5 weeks out from that period starting. I think we're getting to the point where we're having too many really, really poor games in marquee time slots. So just had a look through the first 13 rounds of this season, 9 times. So 9 of the 13 times, one of the Thursday or Friday night game will feature Carlton, Essendon, or Richmond. The 3 worst, arguably the 3 worst teams in the league. Now I understand that people will jump up and down and say, "Well, they're Victorian powerhouses." Are they? Because they're not winning anything.
The argument would be they still have large fan bases and therefore eyeballs for the broadcasters, right?
But do people want to watch those teams, or do people want to watch?
So people might not want to, but it might not matter to the AFL if that's what's bringing in the audience.
But the AFL has said previously that they don't want to have these games in the marquee spots. They've said that we want to reward teams that are performing well, but they just don't do it.
So it's essentially it's merit versus eyeballs, essentially.
And I think you can, and I agree. I'm not saying that none of these teams should ever play on Friday night again until you're making prelims, but I think there's got to be a little bit of give, and we can't just have these playing every... And it's not just these 3 teams to single them out. I think the fixturing's been really poor, and I think we've had some great games hidden in graveyard slots. And I think there needs to be a little bit more flexibility with the league to be able to change the fixture and the schedule when required.
Yep, I think that's fair enough. I might open this one to the floor. Clarko did nothing wrong when shoving Colby McKercher in the chest at the 3/4 time break.
He did nothing wrong. Well, that's hyperbole. He did. How would you like it if I came and just gave you a little punch in the guts?
Randomly right now with no context, I wouldn't feel good. But
Yeah,
in the
exactly.
context of high emotion, passion, footy...
But I'm
I think
passionate
it's
because
okay.
you're annoying me on the podcast. I don't understand why he just gets a pass.
It's a little bit of tough love.
I-
It's nothing major.
Am I jumping up and down saying it's a disgrace and North should sack him? No, obviously not. But do I think it's nothing? Also, no. I mean, we're talking about Alistair Clarkson, like maybe the biggest track record of being a hothead. I mean, how many times have we had Alistair Clarkson in the headlines for punching holes in walls or screaming at people and abusing people at local footy games and play zone players at Hawthorn, at North Melbourne? I don't see why we would accept this at all in any walk of life, football included. I just don't see it. Again, it's not the worst thing I've ever seen. I just don't understand why people are brushing it off, saying, it's just what happens.
I don't think the intention is what matters, and I don't think his intent was to be violently vicious towards one of his players. I think he was trying to make a point and try and, get something out of it.
But there are other ways to make a point without being physical and actually hitting your players.
Right, but everyone's different. It's not like he's going around punching all of his players at 3/4 time, right?
Well, maybe he is. We don't see it. The other thing is, going to Colby McKercher is not a reliable source for whether this should or shouldn't happen. What's he going to say? Oh, yeah, I hated that he hit me. I don't want him to coach me. Of course he's going to say, yeah, he loves me and it's tough love and, we hugged it out after the game. I just don't think...
But should you take issue on behalf of him as well? I don't think...
Yeah,
he's the one involved in it, right?
But if I punched you and you didn't care, but Christian
right
said
now
that you shouldn't do that...
If you punch me right now, we'll have a punch on screen.
Why?
Yeah, that's fine. It's different context.
I don't think it is. I really don't see how it's different. It's still the workforce. It's still the same rules apply. It's a job for both of them. Yep. I don't see why, just because you play professional sport, it allows you to touch and hit people like that. So, yeah, I didn't love it.
We'll agree to disagree. That was going to be the last one, but Christian, I've just got one more for you here. Matt Walsh takes too many holidays during the footy season.
Can't believe it. Yeah, what's going on?
Disgusting.
It's really, 6 months or something that you've got to put aside and give your attention to AFL, and I don't understand it.
As someone who never takes a sickie, by the way, because you've still never missed a podcast.
You have a 100% attendance record, is that correct?
I do.
How many podcasts have we had?
Well, I think
How many has
of
he
just
actually
this
had?
show. So we've had other shows, but just this show. I think this is 8 seasons, roughly 30-ish a
This is the
year.
8th season. Yeah.
Yeah, so I reckon 7 times 30, 210 plus maybe 6
Few
so
specials.
far.
Yeah.
Yeah, some specials, maybe 220, 230.
It's up there with
Straight
Jack,
podcast.
Up there with Jack Chris.
You're hot on his
And
tail.
Jim Stein.
You are hot on his tail. Yeah.
Yeah, that's an
Impressive.
incredible record.
Anyway,
But so just to circle back, because I know he will listen. He's an avid listener when he's away. You're saying it's justified. He does take too many holidays.
Make a statement.
Yeah, but you could have put Jake Michaels or Matt Walsh in that question. I would have had the same answer.
Well answered. I agree with you. Guys, that's all we have time for. Christian and Jake, thank you very much. Don't forget to put your tips in this week. How are your tips going, by the way? I think we all got pretty even on
Yeah,
it.
you said this morning that we're all on the same.
Yeah.
All three of us.
Well,
I
me,
think.
you, and Matt are on 25. Christian's one behind on 24.
Tight start to the year. We like
It's a
it.
tight start. Thanks again, everyone, for listening or watching. We'll be back next week to talk all things Gather Round.